Hi YouTube. Today we're going back in time. I was going through some of my older content and thought it'd be cool to show you guys some of the races I've done starting in 2018. So basically I've been an athlete pretty much my whole life, never done it at a professional level of course, but I swam at a very high level for a very long time. And then when I was 15, I transitioned into triathlon. I did that until the end of 2017, which I was training for an Ironman, and when the opportunity to go to said Ironman kind of went away, I decided to switch my focus to something I was really passionate about, which was and is cycling. So January of 2018, I focus on only cycling. More specifically at this time, fixed gear criteriums. So my goal was to go all over the world and race the biggest fixed gear criterium races, from Red Hook Crit to Mission Crit, Fixed Nations, and many others. So here today we're gonna go through my first ever international fixed gear criterium. This happened in the summer of 2018. I had been training seriously for 6-7 months and I felt like I was in really good shape. The goal of this race was to get points and qualify for the Fixed Nations Cup, which was happening for the first time in the following year, 2019. For that, I would have to get points. There's a whole point system explained on their website, and with those points I would qualify and then register for that race in the following year in France. So we're in London here. This is a crit circuit that they use very often, and we have people from pretty much all over Europe. At this point in time, I was living in the UAE and flew to Europe to do a few races, this being the first of them. Again, the goal was to get those points to qualify for Fixed Nations Cup, but it's the first one, so you never know what's going to happen. I'm starting at the front. This is the qualifying race, only 6 laps of this very quick course. And basically my goal is to finish as close to the front as possible so that I have a good starting position in the final race, which would happen later in that same day. That's how fixed gear criteriums work. You usually do a very short qualifying race, which then positions you on the grid for the final later that day. Usually these qualifying races happen in a row. There's a few of them with lots of riders, and only a percentage of those riders move on to race the final later that same day. So here we're on my qualifying race. I have no idea what my fitness looks like compared to these other riders. I know how I've been riding, I know my skills, and so I'm just going to do my best. We're going to watch the whole video because it's pretty short. As you can see, it's only 6 laps, and I haven't seen this since 2018, so this will be fun for me too. So let's get into it. Fair crowd, I'd say. I was pretty stoked to have these many people watching. We start, and for those that don't know anything about fixed gears, you only have one gear on your bike and you don't have any brakes. So the tricky part is choosing the right gear. I was pretty nervous about that because this is a very fast course, and I'd never raced it before, so I didn't know exactly what gear to use. I feel like I did a good choice. It ended up working out pretty good for this qualifying race, which you can see by the cadence. So I only have one gear. My cadence is 95, and usually the ideal cadence is between 90 and 100. You don't want to go too high or too low because it'll make it harder on the race. Here on my left is number 1, so the guy that won this race last, and in front of me are the One Life Cycle guys that I didn't know at this point, but I ended up meeting later in other races and we became friends. I actually sponsored their team for a little bit. This is a very strong field. This guy here in front of me, number 26, podiumed later in the same year at a Red Hook Crit, so the biggest race that you could podium at. I didn't know him at the time. I honestly didn't even know one rider in this group. This was my first race. I was new to the scene, and so I was just trying to do my best and just see what happens. So we're going really fast. As you see here, 54 kilometers an hour. It's a little bit of a downhill. We all only have one gear, no brakes, and we're about to do this double right turn. Again, obviously the pace is high. It's not very strung out because you can hide pretty easily from the wind. My heart rate is high. It's going to be high the whole time because it's a very short race. You see the guys from One Life Cycle doing a lot of the work. Makes sense. They had by far the biggest team of 5 guys. several of those guys being very, very strong. Here in front of me is George, who I don't think podium at Red Hook, but got pretty close to the podium. He's had some really good podiums and wins throughout the years and is a very strong rider. Obviously, the guy in front of him on the same team, James, another very, very strong sprinter. These guys are awesome both on the fixies and on the road. So I didn't know this at the time, but I ended up learning that once I got to know them. It was a pleasure racing with all of them and everyone here in London, who has a huge fixed gear community that I was very happy to be kind of joining in a way. So you see, I'm kind of trying to stay towards the front for many reasons, safety being one of them, because crashes do happen and you don't want to be stuck in the middle of a group where you can't exit the crash. You see, we take these 45-kilometer-an-hour corners pedaling, which is insane to think about, but again, these are different bikes. The bottom bracket is higher, the crank arms are shorter, so we can lean more. I say this because, as you might know, on road crits, when you lean, if you're pedaling, you might clip your pedal on the ground, which is pretty scary. But here that happens less. It still happens, but much, much less. It doesn't happen on this specific race at all because the corners aren't tight enough for that to happen. So we're looking at lap 2 of 6. Again, the pace is just high. Everyone just wants to qualify. So the goal is to, in the first few laps, put the pace so high that the slower riders will just drop off the back, and then we can kind of cruise to the end and then sprint for positions. Basically, the way it works is the order in which you finish this race, and then mixed with the order in which everyone else is, and then with the order in which everyone else finishes the other qualifying race. The grid will be set for the final race. So we're about to go through the finish line. I think you might be able to see, yeah, you'll see on the ground the starting grid, just like in a Formula 1 race, all those little spots, that's where the riders start. This is very important in fixed gear racing, and it's something that makes it very different from road racing, which is where you start makes a huge difference. In road racing, you just move around. You just speed up, brake, like all those things. It's very easy to move inside the group. In fixed gear racing, that's much, much harder because very strong attack going from this guy over here. And I follow the chaser, which I think was a good move. I tend to do this a lot on criteriums, as you will notice on other videos. But sorry, going back to wow. So here we go. George goes for an attack. I don't chase him because we are on a tailwind, I believe. I think this was the tailwind side. We're going 44, 45 kilometers an hour. Everyone kind of just picks up the pace, and fixed gears are easier to draft than road bikes, in my opinion. So if you get a good wheel, it's not that hard to just float towards the front. These two guys do move up a little bit, but I don't think they stay off for very long. The One Life Cycle guys do have someone there, but they don't. I don't think they have a lot to gain in just having a breakaway with one guy, since they have 5 guys, and of those, many are strong and can podium. So we're halfway here, 3 laps to go. I am in 6th position, which is really good. You see the breakaways kind of giving up. Now we're catching them. 6th position is really good to start the second race, which would mean that I'll start more or less in 12th position, 11th, 12th, depending on how they do it, but that would mean very close to the top 10, which is where I like to race to stay safe. So here we go, catching the break. Pace is still high. This other team in front of Jorg is doing work because they do have, again, teammates, so it's important that they catch that break since they didn't have anyone there. Here we are all together. Those are 2 of the strongest guys that we just caught, and now it kind of calms down a little bit. I expect an attack to go soon from maybe One Life Cycle again. I honestly don't remember what happened, since this was 4 years ago. We're doing these tight turns at a fairly high pace, but I think comfortably. I expect again an attack soon. You start seeing these guys looking around, kind of getting really close together. You saw that guy giving a nudge to the other, making sure he knew he was there, and I'm just hiding. Very happy with the positions that I was able to get to save energy. Still, again, my heart rate's very high. You can see it's 180. But I felt pretty comfortable and able to stay towards the front of the group the whole time. Pace keeps being pushed, 45 kilometers an hour now, going into this final corner of the lap. So once we get to the finish line now, we'll be with 2 laps to go. You see people are looking around a lot. Exactly. So there goes an attack. That was expected. And here goes one life cycle who has to do chasing, obviously, because of all their riders and not having anyone follow that guy. And then we just all kind of pick up the pace and follow along. So what I was saying earlier about the starting grid, the fact is that when we get to corners, especially on more technical courses, which is not the case here, you have to pedal backwards to slow down, which is something hard to explain. You will only understand if you've ridden one of these bikes, but it uses as much energy, if not more, as accelerating does. So basically in a race like this, you never stop pushing the pedals, whether it is forwards or backwards. It's a constant effort, which makes it really, really hard, and makes it so that you can't just overtake someone on a turn, because you are pushing really hard to go back in a weird way, to just slow down your bike. So it's hard, borderline impossible, to bomb a corner and just overtake a bunch of people. So that's something to take into consideration, and is why the starting grid is so important, because it basically puts you, if you start in the top 5, you kind of will stay in the top 5, because it's hard for people to come all the way from the back up to the top 5. So we're going into the last lap soon. The pace keeps getting higher. You see here we're at 49 kilometers an hour, and the one life cycle guys aren't even pushing it yet. They will do so because they have several sprinters in the team, and it's in their best interest to finish as high as possible to get a good starting position in the final. You see everyone kind of starts getting nervous because they know that's going to happen and they want to get a good position. I'm just hiding from the wind. My heart rate keeps going up, 183 at this point. The pace keeps going up. I believe this was the headwind, and we're still going 49 kilometers an hour. We're getting into the last lap, so everyone wants to move up. I find a wheel to follow there to move myself up. 184, 185 beats per minute. And you see, start this last lap in top 6-ish. Which is really good, you know. Again, the position you're in coming into these corners is very important because it's hard to overtake. So we take the right, then a couple lefts, and then we're kind of just done with the corners, and it's full gas to the end. People try to speed up in these corners. It's really risky and just hard overall, but if you have the skills, it's a huge advantage. We take this last left corner, 47 kilometers an hour, and now it's full gas all the way to the end. 186 beats per minute for me here. People are just sprinting out of the saddle, and as you see, the new life cycle guys, they have 3 or 4 at the front pushing the pace, trying to start all of them in a good position on the final. This guy here kind of pulls aside. I guess his legs were done. I follow this guy to get back in the group, and now again, all I want to do is follow wheels and try to finish as close to the front as possible. It's not very important to win or podium at all. You just want to finish close to the front so that you start close to the front in the following race. 188 beats per minute keeps going through the roof as we enter the last, the finish straight and sprint. This was a really good wheel to follow. This guy here, you see one life cycle guys, 1, 2, 3, going for it. I just follow wheels. I forget which position I get. It was a top 10. I think it was 8th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. Yeah. So I finished 8th, which is really good. That means I start in the top 15, 16 in the final. And that was that. That was my first international fixed gear crit. I'll do another video on the final because it's different. I think it's important to differentiate, and I can just show you guys what the difference is and what it looks like to be in the final of an international fixed gear criterium. So let me know if these videos are cool, if you guys care to watch these older races and just how my journey through the thing has been, and subscribe to be able to watch all those videos. Check out the links below for the Patreon merch and all that stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.